We'd like to talk for a few minutes today about the eastern bluebird and how to attract them to your yard. They are a beautiful bird with their blue back and their rusty chest and a white belly. They also have a very beautiful song, and they're also tolerant of human activity. And because of these things, people really love bluebirds. So what's the best way to attract them to your yard? The first thing you need to do is put up a Bluebird Nest Box like this. Bluebirds normally or naturally nested in cavities in trees that were made by woodpeckers and other birds. But because we don't have a lot of those around, we put up man-made nest boxes like this, and the bluebirds readily will go into those to make their nest. A box should be made of a durable material like cedar or cypress. It has to have an 1.5 inch diameter hole for the bluebirds to get in. They will obviously go in a hole that's much bigger, but that allows other birds to get in there. So an 1.5 inch hole. It has to have some good ventilation. You can see the holes here on the side and also the slot up here underneath. Now you can imagine how hot it is in the box in the summertime when a bird's sitting in there on eggs and it's 100 degrees outside, so the ventilation is very important. Also needs to have some drainage. You can see that the corners have been cut out here to allow any water that gets in there to drain out of them. And also it needs to be able to be opened so that you can check and see what's going on inside. You can clean the old nest out. This one happens to be hinged at the bottom so that you can open it up and look inside. Also, it's pretty good if you can have the box put together with screws rather than nails. This will stay together much longer, and a box like this could last 10, 12, 15 years in your yard. But this is the very best way to attract them to your yard. Now what is Bluebird Habitat? Bluebird Habitat is generally open areas. They're insect eaters, so they like areas where there's a lot of sunlight. They can find an abundance of insects. So if you think of things like golf courses, cemeteries, open areas like that, that's good bluebird habitat. But they will also nest in some very small open areas. I've seen them nest in houses that are as close as a foot or two from a house, a couple feet from a road that's not used too heavily. Recently, a friend of mine sent me some pictures of one that nested on a third floor apartment deck and way in the air. So they don't need a lot of open habitat, but they will nest anywhere where it's a little bit of opening. Now, how do you mount these things? Well, number one, you mount it about eye level. So when you're looking at the hole, put it about your eye level so that's easy to go ahead and check the box and see what's happening inside. It's best not to mount them on a tree or a wooden pole, because there are predators, particularly snakes, that will climb a wooden pole, will climb a tree and come in here and can eat the babies and the eggs. We recommend that you mount it on a metal pole, one like this one right here. You can see that it has a little fork at the bottom to make it steady in the ground. And the box is mounted just like this on the back with 2 screws. And when it's put into the ground, it's right at the correct height. In addition to the pole, we highly recommend that you put a baffle on the pole to keep snakes, raccoons, and squirrels from climbing the pole. And this just fits down on the pole right under the box, so you're looking at an arrangement sort of like this. Now, bluebirds begin to think about nesting about mid-February. You will see males and females starting to fly to the box, and they might sit on top of the box. They might go in and out of the hole, and the female decides which box they're going to use, which cavity, and she tries to attract the males. And once they have decided that this is going to be a pair, they will go ahead and begin to build nests, and that usually happens sometime early in March. The female does most of the nest building. Most nests are pine straw. Occasionally you'll find grass, but it's a very neat looking, clean nest. Takes her about 2 weeks to build the nest. Once the nest is built, the male and female will go off somewhere that will actually breed, and then she will come back and begin to lay eggs. She will lay 1 egg per day, usually in the morning. She'll leave the box, won't be back to that box the rest of the day until the next morning, where she'll come and lay a 2nd egg. And she'll continue to do this until the entire clutch of eggs is laid anywhere from 3 to 6 eggs in a clutch. The eggs are a beautiful blue color. Occasionally, less than 5% of the eggs are white, but there's just a clear blue or white egg with no speckles or spots on it. Once all the eggs are laid, the female will begin to incubate, and she'll sit in that nest most of the day, keeping those eggs warm, and she'll do this for about 14 days. At the end of 14 days, the young will begin to hatch. They'll all hatch within about a 24-hour period, and they'll stay in the box, and the parents will begin to feed them usually about once every 5 or 10 minutes during the day. After about 16 to 20 days, the bluebirds are ready to leave the box, and they will just come out, fly out of the hole. Once they come out of the box, they don't go back in at night. They fly up into the trees, and the parents begin to feed them up there. When the birds have left, the young birds have left the box, the best thing to do is to open it up and clean out the old nest. Take out all the old nest material, put it in a bag, and carry it away from the nest site. You don't want to throw it on the ground because that could attract snakes and other predators that might smell the birds and smell the nest. Bluebirds will do 2 to 3 broods in the summer, occasionally 4. So the reason we clean it out is the first nest might be this high, and if you don't clean it out, the second nest is up here, and so it's much easier for a predator to go in there and to get the eggs or the babies. Plus you get a buildup of feces, moisture, perhaps some bugs, so go ahead and clean it out after every brood. Now if you go in there to clean out the old nest and they've already started to build a new nest on top, then don't do anything about pulling out the old nest. Just let them go ahead and finish up, and you can pull it out after the second brood. This is the basic Bluebird design box that's used most often. It's it's nothing fancy, isn't necessarily the prettiest box, but we do have some that are pretty if you want something more decorative but yet functional. We have some like this. This is made out of cypress with a cedar roof, and it opens up like this for cleaning. It has all the specifications that you need in a box, but is a little prettier to put out there. This would be another example. Again, the most important thing, it has the 1.5 inch hole, has the ventilation, has drainage, and it's the proper size for bluebirds. So they don't have to be particularly plain to work. Also, we do sell recycled Bluebird boxes that are made out of recycled plastic, and they work well as well and hold up very well in the weather. Now you might hear people talk about monitoring Bluebird boxes, and what does that mean? Well, we like to check boxes about once a week to see what's going on inside, to see if there's any problems. Plus it's very educational and it's a lot of fun. As I mentioned, they're very tolerant of human activity. So once a week we come up to the box. Usually we'll knock on the side like this and then carefully open it up and record if you have a complete nest, if you have eggs, how many eggs, have they hatched, how many babies they've left the box, but you can record all that information. This is also great for kids. Kids love to look in there and see the eggs and see the babies. And of course the old wives' tale that if you touch a nest or the eggs or the babies that the parents will abandon them, that's not true. Bluebirds have a very poor sense of smell, so even if you were to touch the eggs or the babies, the female and the male will still continue to feed them and raise the young. You may also get other birds nesting in the box besides bluebirds. It could be chickadees, titmice, nuthatches. If that happens, just go ahead and let them use the box, and when they're finished, go ahead and pull their nests out. Most of those other birds will only do one brood of young per year, and it's usually early in the season. So once they're finished, clean the nest out, then the bluebirds can have access to the box. But it is a federal offense to remove the nest of any cavity nesting bird. So you don't want to do that. You want to just go ahead and let them go ahead and use the box, and they're great birds too. We love them just as well as the bluebirds. As I mentioned earlier, the best way to attract bluebirds to your yard is putting up a nest box. But some people like to feed bluebirds as well. And what do bluebirds eat? They're primarily insect eaters. About 70% of their diet is insect, and 30% would be seeds and other things. One of the seeds that they eat, in fact the only seed that you can feed them, is sunflower hearts, which are out of the shell. They don't have a beak that they can crack seeds like other birds, so they like the meats. So you can put them out and the birds will eat those. They will also eat suet, which is, you can serve it in blocks like this, or we actually have bluebird nuggets, which are small little round balls of suet. They will eat those. But they love insects, and some people like to feed them mealworms. We have freeze-dried mealworms like this for people that are squeamish about feeding live worms. But they really love the live mealworms, as you can see right here. They're very good for the young, they're good for the adults. They're very high in protein, a lot of moisture content. And a lot of people feed these. You just store them in the refrigerator and put out so many a day. They will eat as many of these that you put out. If you put 100 out, they'll eat 100. If you put 10, they'll eat 10. But they become very used to you feeding these, and oftentimes people, when they put these out, will whistle or make some kind of sound to attract them, and they learn that when they hear that sound that there's mealworms coming. And so it's a lot of fun to see them up close. But it's not necessary to feed bluebirds, but it certainly is another aspect of bluebirds that's a lot of fun. Well, that's some of the basics. Put out a bluebird box, even if it's well into the summer, you can still put a box out. As I mentioned, they do 2 to 3 broods a year, so you might have missed the first or second, but you can get it out late in the summer, and they would still breed. We have nests anywhere from the beginning of March through the end of August, so that's the time when you're going to see them nesting in the boxes. But they are year-round residents for us. They do not migrate, so you can have bluebirds in your yard year-round. Well, I hope you enjoy the bluebirds, and stop at Cold Creek. We have all the supplies that you need right here.